Hey guys, welcome to Carey Youth Almost Live. I say almost live because we filmed this at lunchtime today. We'll see how this works in future, but welcome to the new way of doing youth, at least for the time being. I hope you guys are doing well, that you've been enjoying school and that your self-isolation at home isn't too boring. Hopefully this helps alleviate some of that boredom. First thing I'm going to do though is say, hey, let's do a giveaway. I'm going to find a prize in the youth room. And if you are watching this, put a comment below so we can see that you're watching and see who's with us. So anytime over this weekend, throw a comment in, tell us who you are so we know you're watching, and then on Monday we're going to pick a random comment and somehow get you a prize. If you come to school, we'll get it to you there if school's running. Otherwise we might find a way to get it to you some other way. If the government says we can't contact each other, then it will just be sitting in limbo for you until we're ready. I will get the prize to you, I promise. But something we always do at youth is games, and I've invited a bunch of our crew who are here at lunchtime to come and help me run a game, and we're going to play a game called Bubble Cheeks. So Mitchell and Liam are going to come and play this game. If you've never played Bubble Cheeks, which I'd be surprised if you have, the game works like this. These guys are going to try and blow bubbles. And the way they're going to do that, though, is by pulling their cheeks apart with their fingers. Hence why they're wearing gloves, because we should not be touching our faces with our hands. We are coronavirus friendly. So as Liam was doing, we're going to pull our cheeks apart. We're going to then try and blow bubbles. The first person to blow bubbles is going to win. So we've got helpers to do that for us. We've got Cameron and we've got Lawson coming, and they are going to bring in their bubble mixture. So here's how it's going to do. You guys are going to have to dump your wands in bubble mixture. We've only got one, only one. So Mitchell, while they're dumping their bubble mixture in, Mitchell, what are your chances of winning today?
Very low. I think that my opponent is very good with this. I don't know. I'm not very good at blowing bubbles. All right.
So Mitchell's confidence is low, but we never know what's going to happen. In Bubble Cheeks, anything can happen. So I'm going to do a countdown. These guys are going to pull their cheeks apart, and we're going to see what happens. So ready? In 3, 2, 1, blowing the bubbles. All right. Oh, Liam got a tiny one, but it wasn't that great. I want a bigger bubble than that. Liam's just getting little bubbles out. I think we've ran out of wand mixture there. No, Mitchell's still got some. It's really hard to do this. But you know what? Liam got a bubble. Look at this. This is a bubble. I don't know if you can see that, but this bubble. So I'm going to award that to Liam. Well done, Liam. How do you feel having won the Bubble Cheek Challenge?
I mean, it wasn't that hard, so.
All right, Liam thinks it wasn't hard. Hey, why don't you at home, if you've got bubble mixture at home and a friend and gloves to be safe, try pulling your cheeks apart, blowing bubbles, film yourself doing it and upload it to some format on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. Tag us in it or send us a link, and the people who do the best one, we're going to choose our favorite. We'll give a giveaway to you as well. It's going to be great. Cool. Well, thank you guys for participating in that game for us. First ever Carey Almost Live game. Totally, absolutely. For those who aren't watching at home, what's happening in the room? They're all asking if they can put their gloves in the bin. I said yes, that is the great place for them. Hey, at Carey Youth, one of the things we still do is to actually hang out and talk about things of God and talk about stuff that God is trying to say to us. And in the last couple of weeks, we started this series called Us for Them. And the series Us for Them is about us discovering God is for us. Last week we talked about God being for us. And so what does that mean for us in the rest of the world? And tonight, Georgia is going to speak to us about this idea that we are called to be for others. We are called to be for others. And so we're going to hear from Georgia now, and she's going to share that message with us.
Hey everyone, we are continuing our series Us for Them this week. Last week, Ben brought us a message and taught us that Jesus is for us. If you missed that message, or if you want to get a recap on what we talked about, check on our Facebook page, on our Instagram page, and probably even put it on YouTube. There's a 3-minute recap that Ben did for us. So check it out, and you can even pause here, just like pause it, and then you can come back. Do that for 3 minutes, then come back, I'll wait. Today we are taking what Ben said and taking it a step further and looking at the fact that God is for us, and we are also called to be for others. When I was in high school, I was a drama girl. I did all of the productions, all of that kind of stuff. And there was this girl in my class, we're going to call her Sasha, and Sasha was really kind of cool, and we had just started to be friends. And we ended up in a production together, sharing a change room. And a couple of days in, we started to have this fight about mascara. I said something like, oh my gosh, Maybelline mascara is like actually like the best thing in the known universe. And she said something like, do you want to get an eye infection? Because that's what Maybelline will do to you, give you an eye infection. And this little tiny bickering blew up into something huge because of me. Have you ever had that moment where it's like you have two thoughts in your head, the thing that you're supposed to do and the thing that you could do instead? That's 100% what happened to me in this moment. I had this one voice in my head that said, just let it go. It's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. We're talking about mascara. And then I had this other voice that said, but what if you did something else? So what I did is I snuck into her makeup bag, took her mascara and undid it all and shook up her bag so her mascara went all through her bag. This little bickering blew up into this huge fight. Words were said, we yelled at each other, doors were slammed. You gotta remember, we were drama girls, so it was all about the drama. And it got to the point where we got gaffer taped up, down the middle of the room where we were using as a change room, up the walls and along the ceiling. And I had my space and she had her space, and that's just how it was. And it got ridiculous because in the process of stepping into that conflict, I actually lost my friendship. You see, this is a thing that we as humans always do. We tend to step into conflict, and I think that there are a couple of reasons why we do this. I think one, even if you're not a drama girl, you like a little bit of drama. And two, we live with this mentality of us and them. And we put these walls up, these gaffer tape lines that segregate ourselves from others. And sometimes we do that because people might be different, because we see something in somebody else, and instead of celebrating that difference, we actually tear it down. Sometimes we do this to protect ourselves, to protect our hearts. Guys, I've been in isolation for a week, just me and my son. And there is one thing that I've learned over this week. When you are stuck behind walls, whether they be physical walls or whether they be the walls that we put up that separate us and them, it's really lonely. Maybe right now you are stuck with walls around your heart. Maybe you've been hurt before. Maybe people have just been a little scary. And maybe you're feeling lonely. I want to encourage you right now that God is for you, and He never called us to live with an us and them mentality. He called us to something more. He called us to live in relationship because God is relationship. Last week we looked at Abraham and the fact that God gave Abraham some promises. One of those promises was that God promised Abraham would be a great nation. And God also promised Abraham that he would be blessed. But he promised that he would be blessed so that Israel, the nation that came from him, would be a blessing to others. And at the end of the story that we heard last week, Abraham took this blessing and this idea that God had given him, and he went out to change the world. And if this was a movie, this would be when the credits roll and we're like, la, everything is good, woohoo! People dance off into the sunset, all of that thing. But this is real life. And these stories are of real people, and that's not what happened. You see, Abraham's descendants did grow into a great nation. They grew into Israel. But Israel found themselves in this cycle of what is called the cycle of apostasy. Now, whenever I hear the term cycle of apostasy, I am reminded of a clip when I was little that went a little something like this. I'm gonna make you watch it. It's gonna be annoying. It'll be stuck in your head forever.
Oh, the cycle of apostasy brings Israel to misery. It's not a pretty sight to see they go down and down again. They do what's right in their own eyes, and much too late they realize, and then to God apologize and come around again. Now they're good and now they're bad. First they're happy, then they're sad, and now they need their heavenly dad to bail them out again.
Have you ever been in a situation, write a comment if you have, where you've said, I will never do that thing again. I'm never going to do it. It is over. I'm not doing it ever again. And then the next week you go and do the same thing again. This is what the Israelites were doing. They found themselves in situations where they were enslaved by Egypt, for instance, and then God saved them. And then they decided to go and do something terrible again, turn away from God, and start bickering within each other. And then God had to save them. And it was just this cycle that they found themselves in. Fast forward a couple hundred years, and the Israelites have found themselves in slavery again, at this time by Babylon and Assyria. And they are waiting to be saved from God. You see, what the Israelites forgot was that God had called them to be a blessing to others. And so they allowed their bickering and their enmity to affect their whole world. And so God sent these prophets. Prophets were just people who could speak what God was saying to Israel. At the time when Israel was in captivity with Babylon and Assyria, there was this prophet called Jeremiah. And God spoke some pretty revolutionary things through Jeremiah. Let's read Jeremiah 29 together. Jeremiah 29, 4-7. This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, said to all those I carried into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. Build houses and settle down. Plant gardens and eat what they produce. Marry and have sons and daughters. Find wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, so that they too may have sons and daughters. Increase in number there, do not decrease. Also seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. Now what Jeremiah said grated against what the Israelites thought. You see, they had been taken into slavery and then they had been exiled. And they lived in a space of us and them. There is us, the Israelites, and there's everybody else in this city. And they would yell curses down on others. They would say, oh God, I curse these people for what they've done to me. They were living with a lot of hurt. And they allowed that hurt to be walls that segregated them from others. You see, when we allow an us and them mentality, we're not pushing people away, we're putting ourselves away. And Jeremiah said to the people, hey, this is not what God is calling you to do. He's calling you to make your home here in enemy territory, to build houses and to settle down, to turn your enemies into your friends, to take care of the land, to plant gardens and seek peace. He's calling them back to the promise that God had for them. He's calling them back to realize that they were meant to be a blessing to other nations, a blessing to those that hurt them, a blessing to everyone around them. And this is what God is calling us to be. He calls to us and says, you are made to be a blessing. I'm in your corner, I'm backing you up, and I want you to change the world. And we do it by blessing those around us. In Jeremiah 29, it actually continues. Jeremiah 29, 10 and 11. This is what the Lord says. When 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will come to you and fulfill my good promise to bring you back to this place. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. See, God's plans didn't look like Israel's plans. They wanted God to crush the enemy, and they wanted to be protected. Jeremiah 29:11 is a reminder about who God is. He is for us, and who God's people are called to be for others. And this has been God's message from the very beginning. But sometimes when we've put gaffer tape lines along the walls, when we've put walls up to stop ourselves from seeing others as those that we can bless, it can be really, really hard to do that. You see, when we decide to live with an us for them mentality instead of an us and them mentality or an us or them mentality, it means stepping outside of our comfort zone, stepping outside of the walls that we've created, not giving into conflict, but blessing those around us. So this week, I encourage you to step out and to be a blessing. Here's a couple of ways that you can do that. 1, resolve a conflict. Don't do what I do and perpetuate conflict, but resolve it. It means giving up your anger. It means being humble and being vulnerable, but it can really, really change someone's life. 2, make a friend. Get to know someone that you wouldn't get to know normally. Not out of pity, not because somebody told me to do it, but just genuinely make a friend. 3, learn from someone new. Try and find someone who has a different point of view from you and listen to what they have to say. And 4, share what you have. We're living in a climate where everybody is trying to hold what they have so tightly to themselves. And in this climate, what will set us as God's people apart from others is when we share what we have, when we bless people with what we have. So bless people this week. Know that God is for you. He is in your corner. He has blessed you, but He's blessed you so that you can be a blessing to others. Bubbles!
Well, thanks, Georgia, for sharing that message with us. It's been an interesting time of doing youth online. We'll modify this and evolve it in the coming weeks, and hopefully we make this a really great way for us to still stay connected in this weird, crazy environment we're in. Hey, if you want to still connect with people at youth, I'd encourage you, form online groups, get some direct messaging happening. Some of our youth leaders are going to try and contact you to try and get into some online small groups, and we'll try and make sure those are safe, church moderated and everything as well. But if you also want to talk to someone and you want prayer for something, feel free to get in touch with us as well. You can do that through our emails or our phone or through direct messaging on Instagram or Facebook. We will be ready to hear from you. You can send us an email as well. But we'd love to stay in touch, so please keep letting us know what's going on in your lives. We'll keep letting you know what's happening here from a youth perspective. But it's been great doing this almost live Carey Youth with you. We will catch you next time.